I'm walking a path across Dartmoor that only exists because people once carried the dead along it. For centuries, this was the only way that isolated communities could bury their dead. Across rivers, across open moorland, in all weather.
Today, I'm not just going on a hike. Today, I'm walking straight into one of England's strangest and most sorrowful histories. This is Dartmoor, and this is the Leech Way. For centuries, this was the only route to carry the dead to their final resting place. Dartmoor, the land of Tours, evil hounds, and one of the longest corpse roads in the country. Lich was the Old English word for body, from where the path gets its official name.
They called this the Way of the Dead, a 12-mile path across the desolate English moors.
This isn't just a trail, this is a quite sinister pathway at times that winds across the northern wastes of the moor. Its story really begins in the 1200s with the founding of what were known as the ancient tenements. These were just remote farmsteads, isolated little pockets of life scattered across the valleys. For the people living in these isolated settlements, life was pretty hard and death was even harder. You see, all these farms fell under the parish of Litford, which meant that this tiny village on the far west of the moor was the one and only designated burial site. Now, just imagine getting the news that a loved one has passed away and knowing that your duty is to carry your loved one along a 12 miles, sometimes 17 miles worth of, this. On this path, unforgiving terrain and very likely in bad weather. Although in 1260 the Bishop of Exeter granted only to some to use the much closed church of Widcombe, newer farms were built in the 15th, 16th century, and these didn't get the same permission. Plus, Litford remained the administrative centre for the moor, home to the courts, so this route was still used for centuries by the living and the dead. That is an old powder factory. This is part of what was known as the Dartmoor powder mills from the 19th century. They made blasting powder here for quarrying and mining. The powder mills are a strange thing to stumble upon, and a path built for carrying the dead.
It's half collapsed, no fences, it's just abandoned. People were working with explosives in the middle of nowhere.
Well, get this, my microphone, as soon as we entered this place, stopped working. It was fully charged, I only used it for a couple of hours. It has a 9-hour battery life and it's dead. The next stop is Wismans Woods. We're back into the Leech Way. I have the powder mills right behind me, and the path isn't that obvious. As you can see, it's just walked on, but there are no signs. We're making our way onto Longingford Tor, and we're taking a little detour. Technically, is not on the Leech Way, it's on the other side, but it felt wrong to be here and not go and visit. I've been there before. I made a video almost 3 years ago. I will link it below. It's very old, so I will have to warn you. All right, let's climb up.
I'm starting to understand why people believed paths like this absorbed the weight of every body that crossed them. Old Dartmoor tradition holds that routes used again and again for the same purpose slowly take on the nature of that purpose. Funeral routes became death-associated paths. People used corpse roads for funerals and tried not to use them for anything else.
Wistman's Wood is one of the last surviving patches of ancient, high-altitude oak woodland on Dartmoor. What you're looking at now is only a fraction of what used to be here.
Years ago, woodland like this would have covered much more of the moor before it was cleared for grazing and farming.
Wistman might come from the old Devon word wished, which means eerie, haunted, something that's not quite right. It's the same name given to the wished hounds here in Dartmoor, which are the black hounds of hell.
The trees are stunted and twisted. The rocks are buried under thick moss and lichen, and the whole place has that feeling of somewhere that has been left alone for a very long time. Local folklore says it was once used by the Druids. Actually, some stories about human sacrifice as well. And there are also older stories about the wild hunt, a spectral pack of black hounds with burning red eyes, set to ride across the moor, and in some versions of the legend they pass through Wistman's Wood. And if you hear them coming, don't wait around to find out what they want.
Every sound, every whisper coming out of the woods is different, has that quality to it, like really heavy. Either it's the place or my imagination, honestly, I don't know. But you can hear voices.
Coming back up to the Leech Way and to Longford Tor, there are no path markers out here, just a faint line in the ground that only exists because people keep walking it. There are a couple of tors around here. These are like landmarks. These tors have been used for navigation for thousands of years. They look man-made, don't they? Officially they're not, just granite forced up through the earth and shaped over hundreds of millions of years. But I still find that hard to believe standing next to one. And I was surprised to find that giant legends on Dartmoor do actually exist. They're the stuff that came before the Druids, witches and black dogs, as if people looked at these things and the first explanation they reached for was something and almost put them here. And that is exactly the same thing I thought. And all the fords where the path drops down into the water, and the river crossings aren't accidental.
It is quite common on corpse roads to cross water regularly. Well, partly because it is the only way through, and also because they believed that the water would stop spirits from following. If something tried to come back with you, the water was enough to stop it.
Almost every corpse road does this, not because it's the easiest way through the landscape, but because people believed that running water stopped spirits from crossing. That if a soul became restless, if it tried to follow the mourners home, water would break that connection. This is our major crossing. That's the River Tavy. And there's a set of stepping stones here called Cataloo Steps. And after heavy rain, as you can see, they're completely impassable.
Well, the ground is buggy and uneven. Think about trying to get across with a cart and bodies on top of it, probably more than one. It would have been slow and risky.
There are other accounts, especially from other corpse roads in the country, of bodies being swept away by the current.
And not found for days. And around places like these, this is where people say they can hear things. I mean, I can hear men talking and there is no one around.
And just before the crossing, there is a small patch of trees. Now, this is called coffin wood. The name tells us exactly what it was for. One theory is that this was where the bodies were transferred after being carried across the moor on horseback, and they'd be placed into a proper coffin here for the final approach to Lidford.
When medieval mourners were walking this path, out here, in this kind of emptiness, that's when the stories attached to the Leechway start to surface. You think a route built for carrying the dead would be overflowing with ghost stories, but there aren't many, and the ones that exist are specific.
It's not hard to see how these stories took hold. Medieval life sat in an awkward place between religion and folklore. In medieval times,
The church maintained
that there was a hell, a heaven, and a purgatory, but folklore insisted on something else entirely. That some dead didn't settle, they stayed, and some of them came back. Writers from that period describe what they called revenants. These weren't wispy ghosts, they were the walking dead. You know, there were entities that came out of the graves and terrorized entire villages. The dead getting up again, walking and making people sick, and turning up where they shouldn't be. These stories weren't about just people. There were cruel people who mistreated others in life, that died suddenly, or that weren't buried properly.
The message is pretty clear. Live badly and no heaven for you. Also, medieval people didn't understand bacteria. They didn't understand the composition. What they did know was the sickness followed death. That being near the dead often made people ill. So revenant stories also worked as a kind of public health warning. Don't dig up the bodies, don't touch corpses, don't mess with graves. And maybe most importantly, bury people properly. A lot of revenant stories start with improper burials,
which suddenly makes corpse roads make a lot more sense.
This path isn't just about getting someone to church. It's about making absolutely sure they're put in the ground the right way. Because in the medieval mind, if you got it wrong, the dead didn't just stay dead. When you look at the Leechway through that lens, the rituals start to make sense. The water crossings, the long, exhausting route to consecrated ground, all of it was about making sure the dead arrived where they were supposed to go and stayed there.
We're going up there.
It's out here, in this kind of emptiness, that the stories attached to the Leechway start to surface. The main legend is of a phantom funeral procession. People seeing figures moving slowly across the moor. Sometimes described as monks in white, sometimes it's just shapes. There are also reports from different times of people walking into dark figures on the path and then realizing there's nothing actually there. It's not hard to imagine what this place would have felt like to someone who genuinely believed that the dead could walk.
I have to say, guys, this feels like a pilgrimage of sorts. I can imagine these people having to walk around the beachway with carts and bodies and whatever the weather. Wow. We are approximately 1 mile from Lisbon, so I can imagine how these people felt knowing that they were almost there. 12 miles in all weather is exhausting, it's dangerous, definitely taxing on the body. I haven't seen a leechway sign for a couple of miles, but finally we're here. All this is, look, oh my gosh. Okay, looks like we are at the last bit of our walk, and well, it's possibly one of the most atmospheric, because we are going to walk through hallways. This is beautiful and real creepy at the same time. Alright, let's go through it.
Actually see how deeply it's been worn into the earth.
Look at this.
Stories of people walking the exact same route, with horses, carts and funeral processions all heading the same way, towards Lidford.
Well, let's say that it's haunted. That gives me a little bit of goosebumps. I can see the end of it.
And as I'm walking here, there's something that gets me, and that is, once the burial was done, they still had to turn around and walk all the way back across the moor again.
Wow, it's absolutely stunning. We're crossing more water. Wow. Oh, wow, that is gorgeous.
And this is what they were walking towards, Lidford Church. The end of the journey. It was proper burial in consecrated ground, and it meant safety in the medieval mind.
Well, this is finally over. I have enjoyed myself immensely, even if it was really hard work. And as you can see, I am absolutely drenched. Oh, time to get changed, and I think I'm going to have a pint. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed the video. See you soon. Bye.